Good afternoon, boys and girls. This is Miss Tracey from First Congregational Church of Webster Groves. I'm the Director of Christian Education and a student pastor. In case, in this crazy time, you have questions you'd like to ask, have your parents send them to me at Tracey, Tracey Harris, Harris, at firstchurchwg.org. That's first, First, church, CHURCHWG.org. And so we have read one story before, but today we're going to read another story. And I hope that we can make this a habit in the next few days, but I also hope to do some cooking in the kitchen and other activities that we enjoy while we are going to Sunday school. So today's story is one I don't think a lot of people have heard. It's called The View from Under the Pew. Most of us sit in a pew in the congregation, and we know what that looks like. Let's see what else can be looked at. This book is written by Diane Winters Johnson and illustrated by Margaret Freed. Illustrated means that she did the drawings for this book. So, this book is about Walter. Walter. And so I'm going to read, and then I will be turning the pictures around so you can see. Walter is a beautiful, blonde golden retriever who was born for a very special purpose. He works as a seeing eye dog with Pastor Diane. Pastor Diane has difficulty seeing, and Walter's job is to guide her through the day so she can do her work of caring for the church. So she works at the church. And so Walter comes with her to do work. And we are going to turn the page. To become a seeing eye dog, Walter had to go to school. He had to learn how to guide in the harness, how to follow directions, and how to keep Pastor Diane safe in traffic. To become a pastor, Diane went to school, just like I'm going to school. It's called seminary. First to college and then to a special school called a seminary. Walter was right there beside her all the way. Her job was to learn, and Walter's job was to guide her away from danger as she walked through the town, in the halls, and around the school grounds. They worked very well together. And here you see the town, and then you see Walter walking with Pastor Diane. His harness on, that means he's working. When Diane graduated, she was ready to become a pastor. Together with Walter, Diane went to a ceremony called an ordination. The bishop prayed a blessing prayer. That means that she is in a different church than we are because she had a bishop. That's somebody who is sort of the boss for the pastor. Some of the people wore long robes over their clothes. These robes helped the congregation know which people were the pastors. Over the robes, most wore long red scarves called stoles. After the ordination, it was decided that Walter and the new pastor would go to a church downtown to begin their ministry together. They were very happy. So here's the day she was ordained with all of the people watching while Walter's up front. There's all the people watching. They were glad to come and watch Diane become a pastor. Now Walter guides Pastor Diane down the sidewalk each day to the big church downtown. And she sits and sits in Pastor Diane's study as she works. As Walter lies on his big green pillow under the desk, he can see many different people come to visit with Pastor Diane. Some people come to plan Sunday services. Other people come to talk about their worries, to pray, or find help in their lives. Pastor Diane tries hard to help everyone who comes to see her. On Monday, Pastor Diane begins to write the church newsletter. She types into her computer. Pastor Diane and Walter hear the computer talking as she types. The talking of the computer helps Pastor Diane know what the screen says. Soon the newsletter is done and they can go home for the day. So here's Pastor Diane talking with some people. And here's Walter laying under the desk on the big green pillow. I think if you look closely, you can see her computer in that picture as well. On Tuesday, Walter and Pastor Diane take a taxi to the hospital to visit sick people. Pastor Diane and Walter stop by the chaplain's office to find out what rooms to visit today. The chaplain is like a pastor, but one who works at a hospital instead of at a church. The chaplain pats Walter's head, and Pastor Diane reminds the chaplain not to pet Walter while he is working. If Walter gets too many pats, he might forget to be careful, and Pastor Diane and Walter could get hurt. A hospital volunteer tells Pastor Diane how many doorways to count to find the rooms of the people she will visit. The patients are happy to see Pastor Diane. Before leaving, Pastor Diane holds each patient's hand and prays as Walter waits patiently. And here is the first picture, where you can see the chaplain is patting the head of Walter, which he shouldn't do when Walter's working. And remember, he's working when he's got his halter and leash on. And here's Pastor Diane praying with a patient in bed. It is good for us to visit with people and let them know that that we worry and care for them as well. Wednesday is meeting day. Many people come to the meeting as Walter crawls under the table to nap. The meeting is about how the church will help neighborhood children collect new shoes and supplies for school children who need them. Some children do not have what they need, and school will start soon. On the wall is a picture of Jesus holding little children. The picture reminds Pastor Diane and the people at the meeting that Jesus himself helped people. There are different problems to solve, but the church and Pastor Diane are determined to help the people. So there we have the people meeting, and then the picture, and then you can see Walter laying down, taking a little break while Pastor Diane is sitting in her chair. And now I'm having trouble turning the page. Here we go. After the meeting, Walter and Pastor Diane walk down the street to a restaurant for lunch. The hostess smiles as they come in the door. They come here every day, and Walter likes to sit at the second table. He hopes it is ready. Walter waits under the table during lunch and takes a little nap. So here's the restaurant. They're coming in the door. And here is where Walter goes to take his little nap. Tonight is a potluck supper. Families come to the church at supper time and bring a casserole or dessert to share with others. They put their dishes on a long table and get ready to eat dinner together. The smell of good food makes Walter hungry. Pastor Diane brings a special meal for Walter. He is glad she has remembered him. Let's look at the food. There's Walter saying, hey, I need some food too. And there's a lot of the potluck food. Oh, I think I see some macaroni and cheese. I'm sure a lot of you boys and girls would appreciate that. Some macaroni and cheese. But I think Walter probably appreciated some dog food. On Thursday morning, some folks come to the church to learn about the Bible. Pastor Diane helps them read the verses and understand what each one has to say. Walter curls up nearby and listens as people read together. Slowly, Walter falls asleep to the soothing sounds of their voices. Walter likes his naps, I think. There's Pastor Diane using the board to write on, people reading, and there's Walter taking a nap. I hope he doesn't snore. Once a week, several women come to the church to sew beautiful quilts. Walter loves to lie on his back and look up at the quilt as they sew. The light shines through the colors and creates a rainbow on the fabric. The women will sell the quilt and use the money to help people who are poor. And they sew very nice little stitches in all of that beautiful fabric. And there's Walter looking up as they're sewing at and he's looking at the quilt. Beautiful colors, needles, thread. He's watching them do it all. On Thursday afternoon, the Chancel Choir gathers in the sanctuary. They practice singing the music for Sunday's worship service. The choir director pauses to greet Walter. Walter wags his tail at her and crawls under a pew. Walter likes to listen to the choir sing. They sound like angels' voices. From under the pew, Walter sees the beautiful colors of the windows. As the sun shines through the stained glass, the room glows. And here we have the choir singing. And here we have the stained glass, the choir director, and Walter looking at the stained glass and listening to the choir sing in their beautiful voices. On Friday, Walter and Pastor Diane arrive at the church and go into the main office. Many people work in the church office to prepare programs called bulletins to hand out on Sunday morning. Today they are having lunch together to talk about all the things the church will do in the coming months. They sit together in the church kitchen and pray before they eat their lunch. Walter eats his lunch too, and then he lies under the table for another nap. But the sound of laughter wakes Walter up. Pastor Diane gives him permission to say hello to his friends. Walter nuzzles their hands one by one before settling back down at Pastor Diane's side. And so if you'll notice, he doesn't have his harness or his leash on. So that's how she gave him permission to come out and say hello. Look around his neck. And everybody's eating and talking together. And Walter wanted to join in. So he got to come and say hi to everyone. Finally, Sunday has come. It is the most important day of the week for Pastor Diane and Walter. They arrive at the church very early in the morning. The choir director's getting the choir ready. The organist plays the big pipe organ, and the ushers help the worshipers find a seat. They give each person a bulletin and a welcoming smile. Worship is ready to begin. I think in this picture, where we see Pastor Diane and Walter coming down, we see a job that some of you do. We see the acolyte, and she is getting ready to go light the candles. We see the people passing out bulletins, and the choir ready to sing. So the acolyte is ready. When Pastor Diane comes down, she will say, "It's time to light the candles." And that's the job of the acolyte. Walter guides Pastor Diana down the center aisle. They pause together in front of the altar to pray. Walter guides Pastor Diane up the 3 steps toward a pew behind a tall wooden box called the pulpit. When Pastor Diane stands in the pulpit, people can see her better, and everyone can hear her preach. Walter takes his place under the pew. And so here is Pastor Diane and Walter. They are walking down towards the front of the church to the altar. And Walter once again had his harness on. And here he is while Pastor Diane is in the pulpit and he's laying on the floor. They're kind of like a team. The view from under the pew is wonderful view indeed. From under the pew, Walter can look out and see the faces of families who have come to church to worship together. He can see the faces of older people who have come to this church since they were tiny babies. He can see the faces of the people who have come here for the very first time today. The church is a very special place. And Walter is proud to work in ministry with Pastor Diane at the church. There's Walter checking out all the people. There's the people in the congregation. So maybe you'll think about sending out some letters or invitations when we get to come back to church, so people can join you at church. And then when the people are ready, Pastor Diane and Walter get to go home and start another week. The end. Thank you for joining me today for the view from under the pew. A view of Walter the guide dog and what he sees when he goes to church with Pastor Diane. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you later. Have a good day.